Okay, we are back and we have our guest on the line. Jared, can you hear me okay? Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay, great. There you are. Jared, as I mentioned earlier, folks, was previously principal of the United States Cannabis Coalition, pro-cannabis political group engaged in influencing national and state policy makers and legislation on marijuana industry issues. They're changing their name. We'll get into that right now, but the website that's active right now is the USCannabisCoalition.org, and I guess there'll be a redirect on that to the new name. Jared, tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, sure. Hi. Thanks very much for having me on. I'm a software guy, actually, and my claim to fame, if you will, is creating a smash hit called Weed Farmer, which was released on Valentine's Day in 2011 under the brand name The Grow Brothers. And Weed Farmer is a game on Android and Apple that shows you basically how to grow marijuana. And there have been many marijuana-themed games before, never apps, but games. And most of them involve some sort of violence and police and stealing and stuff like that, which, after my experience, is not at all like the cannabis culture, and that it's really kind of a peace and love, happy-go-lucky kind of culture. So I made a game that was like that, and all it is you grow plants starting from seeds, you take care of them, and the biggest problem that you have is some fungus or some insect infestation, maybe a little dehydration. Just like the
and perhaps and perhaps odor.
Well, in our game, it's totally legal.
There you go.
That's the whole concept.
Tell us just, I like to personalize the bio a little bit, and you're going to tell us a little more here about your new bio. But anyway, a little bit about where you're born and raised, where you went to school, some of that background.
Oh, sure. I'm from Miami, Florida, born and raised. My father came here when he was a teenager, so we're old-time Miamians. And I went to school at FIU, which is a university here in Florida, and also University of Tel Aviv for a little while in Israel. And when I got back to the United States, I went right into business for myself and started my first software company, 22 years old, and I've had 7 companies since.
Very good. Thank you. That's great. We tease South Florida about being the 6th borough and all of that, but it's always nice.
It is. It's not a tease.
It's what we do.
We should have voting representation.
All right. Let's get going on your organization. I want to hear a little about the history and philosophy and the mission and vision, all of that good stuff. But I know you're in flux right now, so maybe you can clarify some of that.
Sure. We're actually now, the official nonprofit organization is called the United States Freedom Coalition, and there is no website for it. We actually just got the domains yesterday, and this all came about because we tried to open bank accounts with our original name and original charter, and it seems that there's, for lack of a better term, thought police and word crime in using the word cannabis. And if you use that word, even if you have absolutely nothing to do with it, you don't touch the plant, you don't even see it, you don't even deal with anybody that, secondhand, you're only dealing with industry organizations and other political organizations. Your 527 political organization doesn't matter. You can't get a bank account because the word cannabis. And so we actually had to broaden our whole charter. We were specifically for 10th Amendment rights and its application in cannabis, and how so many states have legalized marijuana through popular constitutional amendment votes, where 60 or more % of the population say it's okay. And presidents don't get that kind of level of popular support. So it's very popular, and the state should have the right, and that's what we're all about. Okay. And it turns out, because we can't use the word cannabis, we had to broaden our mission to handle all things 10th Amendment related, all things states' rights, and that's what the United States Freedom Coalition is about. So we had to pick a second cause to champion, and actually we chose LGBT issues because that's very tied to states' rights. And so we're going to do both of them, although cannabis comes first. And the LGBT issue one is also called the United States Free Choice Coalition.org, and that domain also will come online within the next few days. Okay. So basically, we're all about the 10th Amendment. We're all about the founding charter of the United States, which is states, individual states that are united together. And so the whole point of it was that each state was an experiment, and each state was to rule itself and in accord with the people who lived there. And if the people didn't like it, they could vote with their feet and leave. And this, of course, would make the successful states grow that adhere to the will of the people. And the states that weren't so successful and that were being a little despotic or ruling in the interest of a select few would find that their population was dwindling and their revenue base and so forth was dwindling. And actually that kind of works in some effect in the United States now. But we have a federal government which decides over and above the states' rights about personal issues of personal freedom. And that's contrary to liberty, contrary to the ideas enshrined in the U.S. Constitution.
Okay, well, let's go. I'm going to loop back to that a little bit later because I have a couple questions about the states' rights.
Sure.
Literal interpretation, like you just gave.
Okay.
But backing up to your group, you consider yourself a lobby group? Are you a K-Street
yes,
a K-Street walker or what?
No, we are a special project. The special project for the United States Cannabis Coalition is a single-issue project. And the issue is to convince Donald Trump to keep his campaign pledge and to convince Donald Trump that the people that he has hired for whatever reason, due to their professional acumen or what have you, are not serving his interests by not allowing him to keep his promises, by going on missions and seeking objectives which are contrary to the president's stated opinions and pledges. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically what we're going to do. And we're convinced that the president is not getting the full information because he's surrounded himself with people that have a very particular point of view, a regressive or retrograde point of view that I'd say is decades old and decades has been refuted. And so these people have their own self-interest in mind and the interest of their other fellow believers, and they are proceeding down a path which, again, we believe strongly the president would not approve of if he understood the full ramifications. Now, you say, well, he's the president. How can he not know? Well, he's a little busy. He's a little busy. And
there's a lot he doesn't know. Anyway, right, what you're getting into is Beauregard. We have to talk about Beauregard here, Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions.
That is actually correct. And
so
that's
you've
actually
got
why we founded the USCC.
So you got Sessions, Trump, and Roger Stone all in your head right now, right? You got to sort that. What's the dynamics of that trio?
Okay, well, Roger Stone is a longtime friend of Donald Trump.
Right.
He's a New Yorker. He's been actively involved in New York politics for decades, and he's been actively involved on national scale, presidential level politics also for decades. And he has been a longtime political advisor to Donald Trump, and in fact, when Donald Trump made his brief 2000 foray with the Reform Party, it was Roger Stone who was behind that effort as campaign manager. And actually, when Donald Trump issued his first campaign announcement, it was Roger Stone who was his campaign manager at that time. And of course, Corey came in after Roger and took over because Roger and the president had a difference of opinions in the ways to proceed. And I'm not privy to all the details, but I understand clearly that they're still on friendly terms, and they do speak from time to time. Again, I'm not privy to all the details on that, but I do know that they speak, and I do know that President Trump still values Roger Stone's opinion. You can see him tweet that sort of stuff firsthand within the past 30, 45 days.
Right.
And so I know Roger Stone personally because I just ran into him from a book signing, actually, and he said some stuff that blew me away, and I thought he was probably one of the bravest men I'd ever met. And the stuff he was saying wasn't really Republican GOP stuff. It was more libertarian stuff, which is my bent. I'm more of a libertarian.
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw eye to eye with him, and we started to chit-chat, and I agreed that if he was going to speak again, I'd come by and listen to him again, and maybe we'd have a chance to speak more. And so I did, and I told him what I did. I told him we farmers, and 1 million app downloads, more than 1 million people have used it, tens of millions of people have been exposed to the brand. It's a little old now and crusty, but in 2011, 11, 12, 13, 14, it was still pretty popular. And so we started talking about marijuana, and he's a big-time advocate for legalized marijuana and for personal liberty, and so we saw eye to eye on that. And of course, he has his conservative moments, but this we could agree on. And so I saw him again, and he mentioned that he had an opportunity to speak at a cannabis conference. And what did I think? And so I said, it's a great opportunity. He should definitely jump on it, rehabilitate his image a bit, and let the people see what he believes in. And he's like, okay. And so then he said, well, maybe we can do something. Let's see, what can we do? And so we talked about a political organization, because he is, like a political mastermind after all, and he does know Donald Trump. And so we talked about that, and we didn't think, there's so many marijuana advocacy groups. There's just national scale advocacy groups. There's all kinds of business advocacy groups, and we figured, there's probably not really room for one. There's no real reason for it. And then Jeff Sessions started talking.
Right.
And then he started saying things like, the Holder era memo, which states that the federal government will not prosecute people in states which have legalized it, is no longer valid. And that was really scary. And then he went a step further and said, we actually are thinking that the states who think that they can legalize marijuana in contradiction to federal law are mistaken. And everybody who's engaging in the sale, manufacture, distribution, etc. of Schedule I substances can and eventually will be prosecuted. And
the users are bad people. If you're
no good person smokes marijuana.
Right.
And marijuana is a gateway drug. And I don't see any proof. Or there's people say that opiate addiction problems decrease with the marijuana legalization. I don't believe it. I mean, literally, he said, these are quotes that he says. And okay, we have to grant he's a very smart man. We have to grant he's very accomplished. We have to grant that, he didn't get to be where he is by, not being very savvy. So he's obviously very savvy. So we're going to just put him in the camp, and I do, of true believer. I'm going to go ahead and say that he's so wrapped up in his faith, and it is faith, that he will not even examine anything else that runs counter to that. And that's, there's a lot of people like that. Yeah. And you can't really deal with people like that. You can't. Because anything that you're saying is going in one ear and out the other, and they've already made up their mind, and they may put up a facade that they're listening to what you have to say, but they're just being polite.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the concept of faith, because that is really at the core of conservatism as I look at it.
But all faith is not bad. I'm going to have to say I'm a faithful guy. I have faith and hope, and I believe in humanity, and I believe in the future, and that's faith right there. You know, so I have faith.
But they have faith in trickle-down economics. They have faith in the literal interpretation of everything. But
nonetheless, you can't fault the faith. You can fault the interpretation of reality and as they apply faith, but faith is a great motivator. Faith is a great mover in the face of terrible odds and insurmountable things. You just move forward. That's great.
Faith will move people backwards too. I mean,
that's true.
It does create inertia, and I agree with you on that one. Let's back up. Got to back up real quick to the back to your central core of your mission here. Because we didn't get into the war on drugs and Schedule I.
And that is absolutely true. That would be the one thing that would make a lot of these problems go away, is to remove marijuana from Schedule I. And I understand there's a lot of ramifications. Well, schedule system for drugs are a federal device, and it's actually been carried on to the United Nations. And it says that Schedule I drugs are drugs that are so dangerous and so horrible and have zero redeeming values. Now, this is important. Zero redeeming values. They are absolutely useless. Therefore, they are considered the height of crime. Schedule I substances subject you to immediate asset forfeiture, where they take your assets first and you have to defend yourself with nothing, because they just say all of your assets are gained through the use or sale of the Schedule 1 substance. It's a great tool for bringing the hammer down.
Yep.
And that's what they do. They bring the hammer down. And what other things share Schedule 1 with marijuana? Heroin. Okay?
Yep.
Now, heroin's an opiate derivative, but, they don't give heroin in hospitals, really. They give opiate derivatives, and that's why opium is a Schedule 2. And so cocaine, Schedule 2. They use it in all kinds of dental procedures and skin-numbing procedures, derivatives of cocaine. It's very popular, well used. But they claim that marijuana is Schedule 1, no redeeming values. And then you say, well, wait a minute. What if they made a mistake? There must be some kind of process that the DEA put in place to say if they made a mistake. And they did. They put this whole review process in there. But you know what? They just haven't done any. And even though that people demand that they do it by the thousands and with lawsuits, they just don't seem to get around to it since, I don't know, decades. And so they actually haven't had any official review of marijuana in a what we'll call a bipartisan, purely scientific endeavor, not clouded by any kind of agenda. And that actually has never happened. And there's no funding for that. And the people who actually try to engage in it privately get shut down because they're, after all, dealing in Schedule 1 substances, aren't they?
Right.
And so it's this chicken and egg thing. It's a catch-22, a true Heller-esque type scenario, and they've designed it very well. And what they're now doing, they have gone past the point of, I guess, a soft tyranny in designing this bureaucracy to be a catch-22. Now they've gone into oppressive tyranny where they are now violating and running roughshod over the spoken, tallied will of the people. In my state of Florida, it required more than 60% of the population. Nothing gets more than 60% of the vote. Nothing.
Right.
We got 70% of the population of Florida is for it. Now, the federal government's going to say, no, you can't do that? Is that the very definition of tyranny? The people have spoken, they vote for their own laws, and the federal say no? And why? Why do they say no? Because we said so.
Right.
Dangerous. We won't let you use it. It's so dangerous. We can't let returning veterans who suffer from PTSD going to fight wars that we made them fight. We made them do that, and now they come back all broken. And, well, marijuana is too dangerous to let them use it. You mean more dangerous than an IED? More dangerous than a sniper? More dangerous than getting their helicopter shot down? More dangerous than that? And it must be. It must be. So we ask ourselves, why? Why do they feel this way? Who would feel this way? And the answer is an easy answer. It's follow the money.
Yep. So take us through that, because the counter argument from so many since day one for me, before you were born, was why aren't they taxing this stuff, man? It's like alcohol and tobacco. The government could handle its debt, just tax this
stuff. You know what? With Colorado, that's proven itself to be true. That's proven itself to be true in other states. If you were to remove marijuana revenue from Colorado with all the money and the new budgets and the new infrastructure building and the schools and the teachers and all, they would go bankrupt. They would not be able to meet their current financial obligations, which count on those hundreds of millions of dollars. Count on it. Now, let's talk about New York for a moment, because that's your audience. New York has a situation right now where I just told you how Florida works. Florida just had a popular vote. So we had it put on our ballot, a ballot initiative, and we had it added to our Constitution as a constitutional amendment to Florida to allow for marijuana. What can New York do? Can New York do that? Nope.
Yeah.
New York cannot do that. New York has no mechanism to do that. New York has actually something very unusual, which I only learned about recently, which is you have the opportunity for a constitutional convention every 20 years.
Yep.
And the year that it comes up now is this year, November 7th. You guys have the opportunity to actually change your Constitution, which, I might add, hasn't been changed since 1936.
There you
guys
go.
are still operating under laws and under systems and under regulations and under bureaucracy and under structure that was created in 1936, and it's been vigorously defended since.
Yeah.
I'd say that the state of New York has a great opportunity to change a lot of stuff, but most notably go from 5, 8, or 10-year program through legislation to try to get marijuana on par with your neighboring states, or get it done now.
Yeah.
If you did it now and you had your constitutional convention, you guys could be on par with Massachusetts. You guys could be on par with Connecticut.
And Cuomo's indicated he's willing to sign a bill that hits his desk. We just can't get a bill up to him.
Right, because none of the legislators have the wherewithal, I guess, or the fortitude, if you will, to do it. Everybody's afraid of it. Why?
Yeah.
Because of this thought police, this word crime, cannabis, marijuana. Ooh, scary, dangerous, dangerous.
Let's make a distinction here on medical versus recreational here, and I'd like you to walk us through some of the states that are on each side or both. New York does have the medical piece with CBDs dispensed in very few. I looked on the map for Long Island.
Restrictive.
It's
tremendously restrictive.
Yep.
And it's almost a government-sanctioned cartel, which doesn't allow for free competition. It doesn't allow for the service to the community, because if you have multiple businesses servicing, the quality goes up. That's just known. If you only have one donut shop in town, then they can make the worst donuts, and nobody can do anything about it.
Yep.
And if you have two donut shops in town, they will buy, competing for the business, will each of them get better. And so you don't want cartels. And right now you have a really big cartel. You have a multi-billion-dollar industry in New York, and it's not regulated at all. They pay no taxes. The employees who work in it receive no benefits, and all of them are under the table.
Really?
I mean, that's what you have now.
There's one company that has a whole lock on Long Island, and
No, I'm not talking about a company. I'm talking about the black market. I'm talking about the black market, which is allowed to flourish. Why is the black market being allowed to flourish? You see that all of the states around you have highly regulated marijuana industries, even the ones going towards recreational. Yep. And they have to do testing. They have to have inspections. They have to get licensing.
Yep.
Their workers are getting unionized. I mean, they're getting benefits, and they're getting good wages. And so we got low skilled labor, but making good money. I mean, come on, tens of thousands of jobs, but not New York.
Yep.
But so that means that all of the New York black market, they're getting a huge profit margin off of everybody else.
So that's your follow the money scenario then.
Right, where is that profit going?
Okay.
I think you guys should look into it. And actually, I'm going to give you guys a URL before I run out of time. This is from a friend of mine who's local to you guys. It's cannabis, CANNABIS, for the number 4ny.org, cannabis4ny.org. And cannabis4ny.org is for just what I'm talking about. Getting together, making sure you guys turn over the ballot on the back of the ballot that nobody ever looks at on an off-year election.
Yep.
You check off that box saying, hey, guys, let's have a constitutional convention, and every county will get to send representatives to Albany, and you guys will get to hash out all the big problems that have been plaguing you for decades. Why don't you go ahead and give it a shot? Yeah,
some of our activists are really getting quite loud about the convention, and a lot of people didn't even know about it, Do you have a name at that cannabis4ny.org that I could follow up with?
I'll send you an email.
Do that, please. I'd like to get him on the air.
Absolutely.
Well, before you go, can you do a quick rundown of how many states have thrown the switch and gone with the recreational? How many are medical, so forth?
One.
Pardon me?
29 total. 29 total, and of the 29, 6 plus 1 are for rec use, and the plus 1 is DC. So you have a situation where the lawmakers in their bubble have gone ahead and decriminalized it totally and made it actually you can go ahead and buy it almost anywhere. But these same exact people want to bring the full force of the federal government down on everybody else.
Right.
And then I want to bring up one more point about why the USCC exists, because I think it's kind of important, is that we do know how to get to Donald Trump as far as to message to him because we have Roger Stone. And we also understand where Jeff Sessions is coming from, and we want to warn everybody. We want to warn people that even though Congress people have come up and said, oh, he's full of smoke, pardon the pun, he can't do anything because we've prohibited budget. There's no budget for it. Well, that's true. But Jeff Sessions, just a few weeks ago, or maybe only a couple weeks ago, made a big announcement that all of the fines and asset forfeitures that had been previously doled out by the Holder and Lynch administration to various groups and entities and nonprofits will not be done anymore. Instead, the Justice Department will keep all of that money. They will keep all of the money that they get from civil asset forfeiture, and then they will use it. They don't need Congress's money if they hit a few big targets, and from what we understand, that is exactly what they plan to do.
Really?
They plan to subpoena all 29 states, get their licensing records, take those licensing records, say that there is a Schedule 1 investigation underway for Schedule 1 violations, turn over the set of entities over to the Treasury Department and say, we want to know net worth, net asset value.
Yeah.
They'll get a number back, and then they will sort that list by highest value, send a couple of local U.S. attorneys, which are DOJ employees, going over to just take a look. If they actually see the stuff there, yes, it's there, that's it. It's slam dunk. Slam dunk. Those assets are seized. Then they can use those assets to hire more people to rinse and repeat until the whole chilling effect of the cannabis industry is felt. A few people will go down, and everybody else will pull out, and then it will leave all these people who have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the cold. It will leave all the patients who are receiving great relief out in the cold. Opioid use will go through the roof. The big pharma will be so happy. Alcohol, tobacco will be so happy. Who will not be happy? The American people. The American people will be incensed. Who will be incensed? Donald Trump's base will be outraged. Outraged. They are not Sessions people. Donald Trump's base are not Chris Christie people. If they were, Chris Christie would have been nominated. If they were, Jeb Bush would have been nominated.
That's
but he
correct.
wasn't. They weren't.
Yep.
They were not.
Couldn't agree
they
more.
were smashed pretty resoundingly. But they still seem to think that they have some charter over the base of Donald Trump. They have no charter. And when Donald Trump understands that clearly, I believe that we will see an about-face what these guys are saying. Now, I'm not saying he's going to fire them, but I'm saying he can tell them clearly, point blank, you will not travel in this direction. You have much bigger fish to fry. Go fry those fish over there. Leave us alone.
All right, let's get the federal government off my back. This is WUSB Stoneybrook 90.1 FM and W297BM Stoneybrook at 107.3 FM. And we are speaking with Jared Freedman about cannabis, and we're going to let him get the last word here in a minute, but I do have one final question. Have you any update for us on Massachusetts and California? They were in that 6+1 thing of yours or not?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that California will resolve their issues. I believe the people have spoken, and it will be resolved. I believe the same thing for Massachusetts.
Any idea on operational when?
No, I do not. I'm not well-versed enough to know the politicians who are being the roadblocks, because there's always individuals who are the roadblocks.
Yeah.
Part of our organization's mission is to identify who they are, but we actually have only been in existence for a couple of weeks. So give us time.
We have a lot of activists that listen in. Do you have anything? You gave us that one website, cannabis4ny.org.
Give us a Facebook shout-out. Just type in United States Cannabis Coalition. It should come right up. Give us a like. We're open to ideas. Send me private messages via Facebook if you want. We take email sign-ups at our USCannabisCoalition.org. That is a very quickly, hastily thrown-up website, and we are actually in a full revamp,